Wildberry Press presents Tonga's First King and Other Folk Tales by K. Berry. For Taylor Manamaui and Lostika, and to my husband Rick, thank you for your love and support, KB. Glossary: dance, lakalaka; father, tamai; flower necklace, lei; grandfather, kui; grandson, mokopuna; hello, maloelelei; mat made out of coconut fronds, pola; seaweed, limu; spear, sika. Tangaloa and his son Aho'eitu. Among the scattered islands of Polynesia, there are many legends and myths. One such myth comes from the island of Tonga. Grandfather Kui stood in his workshop. Dust rose and fell as grandfather sanded the tip of a long pole. Nakai stood close, waiting for the old man to notice him. Grandfather looked up, a smile on his face. "Nakai," he said, "let me show you something. This is a sika." "It looks very sharp," said Nakai. "Yes, it is. I'm going to tell you the story of the sika from my grandfather, and someday, Nakai, if your memory is as sharp as your eyes, you will tell the story of Tangaloa and his son to your grandchildren." Far above the earth, where the sky was as blue as the feathers of a kingfisher bird, and even the tallest trees did not reach, lived Tangaloa, the great god of the sky. Tangaloa amused himself by observing the world below. Often he lay on a cloud and parted the white mist with his hands to peer down at the sights. More than once he gazed at a blue lagoon where a girl named Vaipupua gathered limu and shells. "Ah, how beautiful she is," he thought. A wreath of sweet-smelling hibiscus and halala crowned her head. Finally, Tangaloa descended to the lagoon. To his delight, she was there. Vaipupua and Tangaloa fell in love at first sight. Each morning, Tangaloa came down from the sky to meet her. They planned a wedding, and her father gave a feast for everyone in the village. The smell of puakatoho and underground umu filled the air. The joyful couple sat at the head pola to enjoy a beautiful feast. Then the dancing began. Tangaloa and Vaipupua watched as the lakalaka, the dance for special occasions, was performed. After a night of celebration, Tangaloa and Vaipupua were ready to begin their married life. They spent their days together, but when night fell, the great god of the sky always returned to the heavens above. Tangaloa and Vaipupua had a son named Aho'eitu, or day has dawned. The boy grew quickly, and soon Vaipupua was chasing after Aho'eitu. She taught him the names of all the island flowers. She taught him how to stay clear of spiny sea urchins, and she showed him the beautiful lagoon coral, pulling him away when they spotted an eel. One day as he played with the hermit crab on the beach, Aho'eitu asked, "Fa'e, where does Tamai go each night, and why can't I go with him?" Her hand drew pictures in the sand and pointed upwards toward the sky. She told her son about his wondrous father. "Your father is the god over the heavens. I would like to go to the heavens. Can he take me someday?" "We will see," she said. Aho'eitu had many questions and longed to go with Tangaloa. He wanted to understand more about his father and himself. Time passed and Aho'eitu grew older. Tangaloa taught Aho'eitu how to respect the land and water and how to hunt and fish. Aho'eitu could spearfish a silvery tuna in one stroke, and he grew to be a well-respected young warrior. Still, he yearned to visit his father's world in the sky. Finally, the day came. "Today, we will spend time together above the clouds," his father said. High in the sky, 3 broad-shouldered warriors, his celestial brothers, greeted Aho'eitu with a slap across his back. With dark, mischievous eyes, they escorted him away from Tangaloa and introduced him to the sport of throwing the sika. Aho'eitu watched as they threw the sika. One of the brothers called out, "Come show us your skills." Aho'eitu drew his arm back and threw to the first target. The sika sang through the air and hit the target with ease. The strength of his throw for such a young warrior surprised his brothers. "Let us all try our mastery at the sika and have a competition," challenged the eldest. They each threw the sika at the target 3 times. Aho'eitu won the first round, and his brothers challenged him to a second. Again, Aho'eitu's throws were flawless. The brothers murmured angrily. For Aho'eitu's final throw, the brothers watched in astonishment as his sika sailed high through the sky and hit the target perfectly. His steady arm and powerful aim prevailed again. Jealous and threatened, his celestial brothers whispered behind his back and devised a way to kill him. As Aho'eitu bent over to retrieve his sika, one of his brothers threw a sika straight at his heart. The sharp point pierced Aho'eitu and he fell to the ground, dead. Later that day, it was time for Tangaloa to take Aho'eitu back home. "It is time to go," his father called. There was no response. "Aho'eitu," he called again, but there was only silence. Tangaloa raised his thunderous voice and called to his celestial sons. With their heads down, they each confessed to their great father that they had killed their brother. The angry god roared as he raised his hand and summoned a violent storm. The whole earth shook with his anger. His remaining sons shuddered to think what Tangaloa would do to them next. He turned and looked at them with fire in his eyes. The great god of the sky approached the lifeless body of his son of the earth. Kneeling down beside Aho'eitu, he cradled his son's head in his lap. A low rumble of thunder rose from his chest as he placed his hands on his son's body. A brilliant light appeared in the heavens. Aho'eitu took a breath beneath his father's hands. Through the power of his father, Aho'eitu woke from the dead. He stood radiant with life and descended back down to earth. It was time to go home. With great pride, Tangaloa crowned his son king to reign as the first Tonga, the divine ruler of the kingdom of Tonga. And that's how Tonga received their first great leader. Tonga remains the only kingdom in all of Polynesia. In some versions of Aho'eitu and how he became the first king of Tonga, Aho'eitu climbs the casuarina tree to heaven to visit his father, Tangaloa. "So you see, Nakai, Tangaloa's sons in the sky forgot their honor and instead became jealous," said Kui. "You must always respect mankind and make good choices." "But what happened to the brothers in the sky?" asked Nakai. "Ah, Mogopuna, the story will come in its time. But first, let's try out this sika." Nakai followed his grandfather out of his workshop and onto the shore. Nakai noticed the fishermen in their boats, beyond the break, working hard to earn their catch. "Kui," asked Nakai, "aren't the fishermen scared of the creatures of the deep?" His brow furrowed as he watched the fishermen wrestle their equipment. "They have Seketoa to protect them," Kui responded. "Tell me more, Kui." Seketoa, the fish god. In a village by the sea lived the great ruler, Chief Ma'atu. Chief Ma'atu was mighty and strong and had magical powers. He knew the sea and all of the sea creatures. Many years before, when Chief Ma'atu was a young warrior, he fought the dreadful sea dragon. It had lidless eyes, a red mouth with ragged teeth, and a sharp scaled tail which whipped around as he swam through the water. The wicked dragon had not been seen since their battle, but many feared it would return. Chief Ma'atu had two grandsons, Moimoi and Seketoa. The small village had flourished under the chief's rule. Moimoi dreamed of becoming the next chief, but he was greedy and thought only of himself. Seketoa was the youngest grandson, known throughout the village for being kind and cheerful. Both boys became skilled fishermen and promising warriors taught by the best teachers. As they grew older, Moimoi became more and more resentful towards his kind and strong brother. He believed that Chief Ma'atu favored Seketoa and jealously clouded his mind. He plotted against Seketoa as he did not want him to gain more favor with their grandfather. One bright morning, Moimoi and Seketoa went fishing together. As Moimoi jumped into the canoe, Seketoa pushed the bow into the water. Past the waves, their wooden paddles broke the sea surface as they skimmed over and past the coral reefs. "Brother, we're going to have a great day. Look at the beautiful sky," said Seketoa. Muttered Moimoi. All he could think about was his plan to push Seketoa out of the canoe and into the sea. He was impatient to carry it out, but he knew it would be difficult to pull in the net without Seketoa's help. The sunlight bounced off the water. "Moimoi, look! A dolphin plays near our canoe. Come, let's pull in our net before he gets entangled," said Moimoi. Dragging in the net, a sudden flash of fire rose up from the depths. It was the dreadful sea dragon. Moimoi was shocked and scared. He fell over his paddle and hit his head on the canoe and plunged into the sea. "Moimoi!" yelled Seketoa. The dragon circled the canoe and Seketoa knew he must act immediately to save his brother. "Moimoi, I'm coming!" he shouted again. Grabbing the thick fishing rope secured to the canoe, Seketoa tied it around his waist. Moimoi's body was sinking steadily beneath the blue water. Seketoa dove in quickly and grasped his brother, pulling him up to the surface. Grunting deeply, Seketoa heaved him back into the canoe. Grabbing the side of the canoe, Seketoa pulled himself up to join his brother in the safety of the canoe's walls. Suddenly, a volcano of fire burst through the water. The sea dragon's massive tail whipped around and pierced Seketoa's side. Seketoa yelled, dropping from the canoe as he grabbed his side in pain. He reached with his free arm for the canoe, but the pain was too much. He began to sink. Back in the village, Chief Maatu sensed that something was wrong. He jumped into his own canoe and paddled over the reefs towards the boys. He found Moi Moi floating in their canoe, limp and bleeding. "Moi Moi, wake up! Wake up!" cried Chief Maatu. "Moi Moi, where's Seketoa?" Moi Moi shook his head and rubbed his blurry eyes, then tried to recall what happened. "I'm sorry, grandfather. The sea dragon." Suddenly Chief Maatu saw the giant dragon rear up. His blazing eyes flamed with rage, and his deep jaws gaped open with a row of jagged teeth, ready to devour anyone in his way. "Aye!" Chief Maatu shouted as loud as thunder. He raised his sika and threw it straight at the dragon's heart. The fearsome creature slowly disappeared down to the secret depths of the sea, never to appear again. Peering over the side of the canoe, Chief Maatu saw Seketoa's body sinking to the bottom of the sea, like a feather drifting down from the sky. With great sadness, Chief Maatu realized he could not bring Seketoa to the surface in time to save his life. But with his magical powers, he could transform Seketoa into a great white shark. "Seketoa!" cried Chief Maatu. "You will forever be known as the great fish god of the sea. You will be beloved by all, especially your brother Moi Moi, as you protect our village from the dangers of the deep." Indeed, Moi Moi changed his ways when his grandfather told him all that had happened. No longer was he jealous of his brother who had saved his life. Rather, he missed his kind and jovial company. Every time Moi Moi went out fishing alone, Seketoa swam alongside Moi Moi's canoe. Moi Moi spent many weeks carving their story into the side of their canoe. In time and with Maatu's passing, Moi Moi became the new chief of his village. He was known for his care and compassion for his people. As the years went by, fishermen continued to recognize Seketoa by the ragged battle scar of the great white shark's side. The villagers counted on the strong and gentle fish god to guide their boats safely back into port. A variation of this story is that Moi Moi does devise a plan to kill his brother Seketoa. Seketoa finds out about his brother's wicked ways and runs to the sea, where he is made into the fish god. I added the sea dragon. Variations can be found in the suggested readings. "Wow, that's a cool story. Have you seen Seketoa or the sea dragon before?" asked Nakai. "Yes, Seketoa has been seen to this day, but the sea dragon is long gone." "Is there another story about a dragon?" "No, but I do have a tale about a naughty demigod named Aitu." Grandfather's eyes twinkled and he chuckled for a moment. "Yes, let me tell you a story about the island of Niuafo'ou. Naughty Aitu and the island of Niuafo'ou. There once was a naughty spirit named Aitu. Known as the lesser half-god, he liked to play pranks on his peers such as Maui, the god of the earth, or Tangaloa, the god of the sky. One night, lying on his back in the tall grasses of the bush, the stars above him danced. Why should the stars have all the fun? "I have a brilliant idea." He carefully chose some of the brightest stars and placed them in a field around him. It was a sight. Beautiful gold light shone all around the dark bush. With just a few more touches, this field would be a party with sparkling stars, food, and dancing, he said to himself. Maui and Tangaloa are always bossing me around, but when they see what a fun party I've planned, they will want to join too. As Aitu was dragging the last star down to the field, Maui stepped into the light. "Aitu, look at the trouble you cause. You can't mess with the stars like that. You might start a fire. Put those stars back." Aitu's face flushed red and he ran off. "Why do Tangaloa and Maui take all the fun out of everything?" he fumed. The next day, Aitu went to the village. He was bored. Every day was as dull as the next. Sometimes, to cure his boredom, Aitu played tricks on the island villagers. His attention was drawn to some children nearby. "Come, children, I know of a magical kasarina tree. If you climb to the top, you can go to the heavens to meet the great god of the sky, Tangaloa," he promised. The children agreed, for they all loved the tales they had heard of Tangaloa. Aitu ran off laughing when the magical tree pushed the children away. "Aitu, look at the trouble you cause," said Tangaloa. "Now the children think the wonderful tree poses a bad spirit." But Aitu didn't care. The next morning, as he walked along the jagged volcanic rock on the island of Niuafo'ou and gazed into the dark blue sea, he got an idea. Near or far, everyone loves to see the Niuafo'ou mountain with its volcano. "I will steal this mountain in the night and take it far away," plotted Aitu. "Tangaloa and Maui will be impressed with my power and strength, and I will be admired throughout the land." The next night, with the moon high in the sky, Aitu carried out his plan to remove the volcano from the island. His powers worked. The mountain yielded, lifting from its ancient plot and dropping into the nearby sea. The volcano slowly advanced through the water, huge waves crashing onto the shores of the surrounding island villages as Aitu pulled the mountain. "Ah," he bellowed. "Surely I'm the most powerful god of the islands." Aitu was so loud and noisy that Seketoa, the fish god, heard him from below. "What is that naughty spirit up to now?" moaned Seketoa. "I must find a way to stop him." He swam up and woke the matapule of each village. He ordered each spokesman to cry like a rooster. They would trick Aitu into thinking dawn was near so that he might give up his hold on Niuafo'ou. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo!" cried one matapule. Aitu stopped and looked around. "Why is the rooster calling? It cannot be morning yet." Aitu murmured under his breath. The moon was high in the sky and the sea roared. "Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo!" cried another matapule. "Morning must be coming soon. I need to pull even harder on the mountain," Aitu thought. Seketoa was worried. The roosters did not fool him. "I will have to try another plan. I will turn myself bright red, red as a rising sun." Seketoa swam in front of Aitu and rose to the surface, glowing like a gigantic red orb. The shark's body filled the night sky with brilliant glow that shone up through the water. "Here comes the sun. I have lost track of time," cried Aitu. Slowly, Aitu's confidence dissolved. The naughty half-god left the mountain stranded in the deep blue sea and fled. The waves calmed on the beaches. Seketoa saved the villages from harm. The great mountain volcano that Aitu dropped into the sea became the island of Tafahi. Now the island of Niuafo'ou has a beautiful lake where the volcano used to be. For this story, I added Tangaloa and Maui to the storyline. I also added the trick with the stars and the children. Seketoa does save the day in the original tale. In one version, Aitu's plan was to take the mountain all the way to Samoa. "What?" shouted Nakai. "That's how Tafahi came to be?" Kui chuckled. "Yes, and the people on Niuafo'ou have a beautiful lake for all to enjoy." "Where's Aitu now?" asked Nakai. "I have no idea, but probably up to the same mischief somewhere." Now that's enough storytelling for today. Let's finally put this new sika to work. Join Nakai and his kui for more tales to come. Tangaloa creates land, the legend of the coconut and how it came to be. 4 gods, 2 goddesses, the underworld, and yams and taro for Tonga. These 3 versions of folk tales are adapted from the originals. The traditional stories feature violence and vengeance, but with few changes. They present as vivid illustrated tales for all ages. Copyright 2021 K. Berry, published by Wildberry Press, LLC. This book was read by Richard Kafusi, all rights reserved. The moral right of the author has been asserted.